Dear students of the third secondary stage, welcome back to our English educational program for today. Today we're going to have a lot more about the prisoner of Zenda, but let me please welcome my colleague, Mrs. Jermeen Baha. Hello, Jermeen.
Hello,
How are you
Mrs.
doing?
Caroline. Dear students, welcome to a new episode of the English program for today, where we promise to give more explanations, more questions, and quotations. And for now, let's go for the summary.
Let's start. The Prisoner of Zenda, Chapter 6, Part 2. The Duke offered Razendel a safe journey to the border and 1,000,000 gold pieces, but Razendel refused the offer.
Robert told Razendel to stop pretending that he was the king, as everybody knew who he was. Razendel was angry because Robert spoke to him rudely.
Just as Rupert was about to climb on his horse, he stopped and told Razendel that he wanted to shake hands with him.
He came nearer to Razendel and suddenly stabbed him in the shoulder with his knife. Then he rode off fast.
It was not a bad injury, but Razendel was angry at letting himself be deceived by Rupert.
The doctor said that Razendel's arm would soon be better. The innkeeper's daughter brought Joanne to tell him.
Joanne knew that if Michael's plan was successful, he would be in trouble because he knew too much.
Razendel thought that with the right encouragement, Joanne would be the perfect spy for him.
Joanne was a weak man, but not a wicked one.
He worked for Michael because he was afraid of him, not because he loved him, and he was happy to tell Razendel Michael's secrets.
There were 2 small rooms inside the castle, which could only be reached by crossing the drawbridge.
The rooms were cut into the rock below the ground. One room had no windows.
Behind it was a second room with a small window where the king was kept in chains. From the window, a large stone pipe led down to the castle moat. If the castle was attacked, Detcherd would kill the king. دي طبعا البلان that was made by Michael.
Then the body would be put down the pipe, and the weight of his chains would keep the body underwater.
After that, Detcherd would escape through the pipe and swim across the moat.
If the castle was attacked by a large group of soldiers, they would do the same thing, but one of the 6 men would take the king's place.
Michael would say that he was only keeping one of the 6 men as prisoner because he had been rude to Antoinette.
No one would believe that the king was ever there. This meant that if Razendel and his men attacked the castle secretly or openly with a great army, the king would be dead before they could save him. Sapt told Razendel that he would still be king next year, but without proving that Michael had killed the real king. The Duke would still be there in his castle, waiting for a chance to take the throne. Therefore, Rodolphe Razendel would never be safe.
Joanne told Razendel that his brother Max helped to put up the pipe to the prison window. He also said that it wasn't easy to sleep in the castle because no one felt safe.
Everyone in the castle was a criminal except the king. Razendel asked Joanne to go back to the castle and not to tell anyone the king was held prisoner there.
Joanne would be safe as long as he kept his promises.
Razendel believed that there were 2 ways in which the king could come out of Zenda alive.
One way was to have a miracle, and the other was if one of Michael's men betrayed him. Now we are going to move to some of answering the following questions. Please follow for the questions and their answers.
Why couldn't Duke Michael and his men say in public that Razendale wasn't the real king?
They couldn't do so because people then would know that they had kidnapped the real king. وطبعا this will worsen the image of Michael in the people's eyes.
Robert Henso told Razendale about Michael's new offer to him. Illustrate.
Duke Michael offered Razendale a safe journey to the border and 1,000,000 gold pieces.
How was Robert Henso able to trick Rodolph Razendale and injure him at Talenheim?
Rupert Henso pretended that he wanted to shake hands with Razendale. He stepped nearer to Razendale and suddenly stabbed him in the shoulder with his knife.
Why would Joanne be in trouble if Michael's plan to kill the king succeeded?
He would be in trouble because he knew too much.
How could Joanne be very useful to Razendale?
As Joanne worked at the castle of Zenda, he would make the perfect spy for Razendale.
According to Joanne, why did he work for Michael?
He worked for Michael because he was afraid of him, not because he liked him. And this was the way for all people. They were really afraid of Duke Michael.
Where was the king kept at the castle of Zenda?
The king was kept in chains in a room with a small window. طبعا, and this is the room اللي هي منها if they want to kill the king or get rid of the king. This room is linked into the pipe اللي هيحطوه من خلالها جوه البايب ومن البايب للموت وبعد كده طبعا الchains is going هتاخدوه لتحت وهيغرق ومش هيطلع أبدا للسطح.
What would happen if some people attacked the castle?
Datcherd would kill the king and the body would be put down the pipe and the weight of his chains would keep the body underwater. ودي كانت Michael's plan to get rid of the king. From the window of the king's room, there was a large stone pipe that led down to the moat. If the king was dead, his body could be put down the pipe and the weight of his chains would keep the body underwater.
What would happen if the castle was attacked by a large group of soldiers?
Michael's men would kill the king and put him down the pipe leading to the moat. One of Michael's men would take the king's place. لأنه لازم يكون في سجين. There had to be a person اللي هم already they were going for him. No one would believe that the king was ever there. So it would seem that Michael was keeping one of the 6 men as a prisoner because he had been rude to Antoinette de Mauban.
طيب لازم هنا ناخد بالنا من نقطة مهمة. مايكل بيحاول يعمل كل البوسيبل بلانز لأنه مش عارف سابت وفريدز مع روبرت بيفكروا في ايه بالظبط. الخطة الأساسية إنه إحنا إزاي هنتخلص من الكينجز بادي. الكينج محبوس في أوضة ما فيهاش غير شباك واحد بس. الشباك ده متصل ببايب بماسورة هتنزل الكينج من الأوضة. هم هيقتلوه أو ممكن يعني بالتشينز دي يلفوه ويروحوا منزلينه كده زي الزحليقة كده على الموت على البحيرة. طبعا الموت ده عميق وإحنا قلنا في حلقة سابقة إنه من ضمن طرق التأمين للكاسل هو وجود الموت مع الدرو بريدج. الموت ده عميق فهو مجرد إنه هو هينزل البادي بتاع الكينج ثرو البايب بالتشينز الحديد التقيلة دي هتقدر إن هي تكون تقل مع جسم الكينج هتنزله تحت وتغرقه فالجثة دي بتاعته مش هتطفو خالص على سطح المية. ده في حالة إن سابت وفريدز وروبرت جم معاهم عدد قليل جدا من الناس. طيب افرض روبرت عمل an open war. عمل حرب كبيرة وجاب كل السولجرز الموجودين في الجيش بتاعه. في الحالة دي الخطة لازم تتغير. الأساسي بتاعها إن إحنا هنتخلص من الكينج's body through the pipe to the moat. لكن الحاجة التانية إن إحنا هنقعد one of الناس اللي هو one of the 6 men of Michael's to sit as a prisoner, where Michael is going to pretend that he is punishing one of his men for being rude to Antoinette de Maubin, the woman he was guesting at the castle of Zenda.
Back to the questions. Even if Rudolf Rassendyll remained king forever, he would never be safe. Explain.
Without proving that Michael had killed the real king, Michael would still be there in his castle, waiting for his opportunity to take the crown.
Did King Rudolf Elfberg know about Michael's plan to kill him?
Yes, he did.
Who else knew about Michael's plan to kill the king?
Max Holf, Joan's brother, knew about it.
What was Max Holf's role in Michael's plan to kill the king?
Max helped to put up the pipe to the prison window.
According to Rassendyll, there were 2 ways in which the king would come out of Zenda alive. Illustrate.
One way was to have a miracle, and the other way was if one of the duke's men betrayed him. وbetrayed يعني يخون.
Now we're going to move to more questions using quotations and answering the questions for these quotations. Quotation 1.
But you can't say that in public, can you? Because then people would know you have kidnapped the real king.
Who said this to whom? Rudolf Rassendyll said this to Rupert Henzo.
Why couldn't those people say in public?
They couldn't say that Rudolf Rassendyll wasn't the real king.
What was the only way for Michael to become king?
His only way was to kill the king and Rudolf Rassendyll and marry Princess Flavia. طبعا ديوك مايكل كان في موقف سخيف جدا لأنه ما عندوش وسيلة إنه يقول إنه he was the one who kidnapped the king. لو قال إن هو he kidnapped the king, he is going to be a very bad person in front of the people, and definitely they would not trust him to be the king. ولو قتل رودولف رازندل, طب ما the other king is already in prison. So he was in a very bad situation. If he wanted to become the king, then he had to kill both the king and Rudolf Rassendyll, the real king and Rudolf Rassendyll. وبعد كده he has to take the step to marry Princess Flavia لأنه he had no right to be the king. Princess Flavia هي اللي ليها الحق to become the queen. So he has to marry her and then become the king. So that was the very serious situation that he was already put in.
You know, the game is not finished yet. And until it is, I will choose my own name. Who said this to whom?
Rudolf Rassendyll said this to Rupert Henzo.
When was this said?
This was said when Rupert went to see Rudolf Rassendyll at Tarentum to give him a message from Michael.
Why did the speaker say the game hasn't finished?
Rupert asked Rudolf Rassendyll to stop pretending that he was the king, as everybody knew who he was.
Rudolf believed that Michael couldn't say in public that Rudolf Rassendyll wasn't the king, as people would know then that he had kidnapped the king.
The Duke offers you more than I would. He offers you a safe journey to the border and 1,000,000 gold pieces. Who said this quotation and to whom?
Rupert Henzo said this to Rudolf Rassendyll.
طبعا we have to remember that this was the second time that Rudolf was offered a way to escape. وبرضه Rudolph didn't think of escaping because what he wanted was to save the king number one, save the country, and definitely save Princess Flavia. So he continued with the plan and he continued to work and find the king safe.
Why did the Duke want that person to leave the country? He wanted him to leave the country so that he could become king after getting rid of the king.
Did the addressed person accept or refuse the offer?
He refused the offer. هنا لازم ناخد بالنا إن رودولف insisted on refusing the offer even the second time. برغم إنه Black Michael is offering more money, but he refused and insisted on it because his presence is the only protection for the king to stay alive. If his life is in danger, then the king's life is in danger too. طيب لو أنا لسه موجود و present محدش يقدر إنه هو ياخد الثرون أو الكراون بأي طريقة.
Tell the Duke that I refuse his generous offer. How is his prisoner, by the way? Who said this and to whom?
Rudolph Rassendyll said this to Robert Hensel.
What was that offer the speaker refused?
Duke Michael offered Rassendyll a safe journey to the border and 1,000,000 gold pieces.
Who was the prisoner and where was he?
The prisoner was King Rudolf Elfberg, and he was imprisoned at the castle of Zenda.
Another quotation. Good. Now go from here while you can. Who said this and to whom?
Rudolph Rassendyll said this to Robert Hensel.
What does the phrase while you can mean?
It means that if Robert didn't go away, Rassendyll would kill him.
What terrible thing did the addressed person do before riding off?
He pretended that he wanted to shake hands with Rassendyll, and then he suddenly stabbed him in the shoulder with his knife. وstabbed يعني يطعن.
The doctor says your arm will soon be better. And the good news is that your plan has worked, for the girl has brought Joanne to the house. Who said this quotation and to whom?
Fritz said this to Rudolph Rassendyll.
What happened to that person's arm? طبعا it's Rudolph Rassendyll we're talking about.
Robert Hensel stabbed Rudolph Rassendyll in the shoulder with his knife.
Who was the girl and why did she bring Joanne to the house?
The girl was the hotel owner's daughter. She brought Joanne to the Italian because Rudolph Rassendyll wanted him to work as a spy for him and give him information about the castle of Zenda.
So when Michael arrived at the castle, he could say that he was only keeping one of the 6 men as prisoner. Who said this and to whom?
Joanne said this to Rudolph Rassendyll.
When would Michael keep one of the 6 men as prisoner?
He would do this after killing the king if the castle was attacked by a large group of soldiers.
Why was Duke Michael's plan to get rid of the king very clever?
When he keeps one of his men as prisoner for being rude to Antoinette de Maubin, after killing the king, no one would believe that the king was ever there.
It's a very clever plan, Rassendyll. I think that this time next year you will still be the king. Who said this quotation and to whom?
Colonel Sapt said this to Rudolph Rassendyll.
Which plan was the speaker referring to?
It was Michael's plan to kill the king and get rid of his body by putting it in the pipe leading down to the castle moat. if some people attacked the castle.
Why did the speaker think Rassendyll would still be king after a year?
He thought so because Duke Michael couldn't tell anyone that Rassendyll wasn't the real king, as people would then know that Michael kidnapped Rodolph Elfberg.
It's not easy to sleep at the castle of Zenda because no one feels safe. Everyone in it is a criminal except the king. Who said this quotation and to whom?
Johann Wolff said this to Rodolph Rassendyll.
Why did the speaker say everyone at the castle except the king was a criminal?
The king was held a prisoner at the castle. Michael and his men wanted to kill the king so that Michael could be the king.
And who wanted to rescue the king?
Rudolf Rassendyll, Sapt and Fritz wanted to rescue the king.
We can help you if you keep your promises. Otherwise, you'll never be safe again. Who said this and to whom?
Rudolf Rassendyll said this to Johann Wolff.
Which promises was the address person asked to keep?
Johann promised Rodolph Rassendyll to help him rescue the king, Rudolf Elfberg, who was held prisoner at the castle of Zenda.
Why did the address person agree to help the speaker?
Johann agreed to help Rassendyll because he didn't like Duke Michael, as he thought that the Duke and his men were criminals.
Now we're going to move to more questions of finding the mistakes and correcting them in the following sentences.
Rupert Henso told Rudolf Rassendyll that the Duke and many of his servants had good health, so it was best if Rassendyll and his men stayed away.
Okay, the mistake here, of course, is that Rupert Henso told Rudolf Rassendyll that the Duke and many of his servants had a dangerous illness, so it was best if Rassendyll and his men stayed away.
Rupert Henso told Rassendyll that he and his friends needed to get back to the castle because they had important rights.
And of course, Rupert Henso told Rassendyll that he and his friends needed to get back to the castle because they had important duties.
Colonel Sapt believed that Ditchard was the worst criminal of Michael's 6 men.
Was this right? Of course, Colonel Sapt believed that Rupert Henso was the worst criminal of Michael's 6 men. And Rupert Henso, he used to have this kind of a criminal mind.
Michael couldn't say in public that Rassendyll wasn't the real king, as people would know that he had respected the real king.
Michael couldn't say in public that Rassendyll wasn't the real king, as people would know that he had kidnapped the real king.
Duke Michael offered Rassendyll a safe journey to New York.
Did he offer him a safe journey to New York? Of course, he offered him a safe journey to the border.
Rupert Henso pretended that he wanted to shake hands with Rassendyll, and then he shot him in the shoulder with his gun.
So the first part is correct, but what about the second part of the sentence? Yes, he pretended that he wanted to shake hands with Rassendyll, and then he stabbed him in the shoulder with his knife. نخلي بالنا when we change the sentence that we put the full complete answer to the statement.
Johann said he worked for Fritz because he was afraid of him, not because he liked him.
Johann said he worked for Duke Michael because he was afraid of him, not because he liked him.
If the castle of Zenda was attacked, Michael's men would release the king.
Would they release the king? طبعا, of course not. If the castle of Zenda was attacked, Michael's men would kill the king.
If the king was killed, his body would be put down the pipe, and the weight of his chains would keep the body above the water.
هنلاقي إن sentence, it seems like the sentence is all right, but if you go into the minute details, you will find that only one word is wrong. If the king was killed, his body would be put down the pipe and the weight of his chains would keep the body underwater.
If the castle was attacked, Michael planned to keep Fritz as prisoner because he had been rude to Antoinette, so no one would believe that the king was ever there.
Yes, I think you caught the mistake. It was if the castle was attacked, Michael planned to keep one of the 6 men as prisoner because he had been rude to Antoinette, so no one would believe that the king was ever there. Dear students of the 3rd secondary stage, by these questions and quotations, we have come to the end of our episode today. I hope that you have benefited a lot from it and waiting for you, of course, next time. Thank you and goodbye.
Dear students, hope to see you next time with new exercises, new lessons, new units, and new chapters. See you then. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.